As a retirement income planner and a fiduciary, one of the most common questions that I get is when to take my pension, how to take my pension. That's a really good question. Let's dive directly into why it makes such a big difference. When you look at your pension statement, one of the things you need to understand is what all the options are and the implications for those options. I'm going to go through a few top of the line ones that everyone kind of checks off and knows. There may be single life, which means that you get a certain amount of money for the rest of your life. There may be joint life, which means you and your spouse will get a certain amount of money, generally lower than if it's single life, for the rest of your combined lives. So if one of you dies, the other person's going to get it, which is an option. It may be a myriad of combinations. The ones I'm going to talk about are the ones at the top of the list. Many pension options have maybe anywhere between 5 and 10 different options. It is imperative that you know what the implications are of those options. Let me tell you why, and let me give you a few examples. Many people base their life expectancy on their parents' life expectancy or what their friends' life expectancies or relatives' life expectancies are. You can't really base it on that. Although it is a good indicator, it does not mean that you'll live as long. One of the biggest problems that people have is envisioning that they're not going to be here anymore, which makes a lot of sense. So you can't blame people for that. So you have a married couple, and in this example, you get $4,000 if you do joint life. You get $6,000 if you do single life. Well, $6,000 is a lot more than $4,000. So what they figure out is, well, I'm going to go ahead and take the $6,000 because my mother lived till 97 years old and I feel pretty good. Well, for one, men live on average 10 years less than women, 5 to 10 years less than women. So you have to put that in there. So if you're the male taking it, you may want to rethink that. But if you're the female taking it, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to live that long as well, right? So let's say in this example, you're a male and you're married and you have the option of taking a single life pension for $6,000. A few things you need to throw into the mix. Does that $6,000 have a cost of living rider on it? Is it going to inflate over time? So if you live an extra 20 years, will you be getting $6,000 or will you be getting a higher amount based on a cost of living adjustment? The second thing you've got to ask yourself is, what happens if you die out of the gate? What does that mean? It means the following. I knew an individual who, as the pension election, decided to have single life because he believed that he was going to live a long time. He retired at the age of 65 years old. He took $6,000 in pension every single year and had his wife sign off on not taking any pension. Well, 2 years later, he got Parkinson's. Well, the problem with Parkinson's is the fact that generally speaking, it gets worse and worse. You have to have supplemental care. And eventually at the end of the story, he passed away. Well, between the $6,000 that he got in pension and the $3,000 that he got in Social Security when he died, now you have $9,000 of deficit. 9 times 12, it's $108,000 that was gone. So do you really want your surviving spouse in a situation in which they have no access to that money? And that's exactly what happened in this instance, right? I've seen situations that are better and worked out quite well for the individual because their spouse died, they continue taking that money for the rest of their life, but many people make the wrong election. In this case, joint life would have been better because he just didn't live long enough to justify it. And not leaving your spouse with options is a big deal. Before you make a pension election, it is imperative that you speak to an advisor about what the best thing is for you and your family. Because if you do not, it's the difference between having enough money for your medical care and your retirement than not. I'm not here to tell you when you're going to die. I'm just here to make sure if you die that your surviving spouse has enough money to live on. Another thing that happens too is, what if you're single? What if, Ally, this does not actually relate to me because of the fact that I'm going to get $5,000 a month in my pension, so of course I'm going to hit single life. Here's the problem. The problem is, if you take that $5,000 a month pension and you're dead in a year, well, you have $60,000. You may have a lump sum value of, $500,000, $600,000. It's gone forever. No one gets that money. Did you work all those years, 20, 30 years, just to potentially die in a year and not even have a beneficiary that gets any money? So you've got to look at your options, and ultimately, what happens when you elect those options? What happens if you pick the wrong one? Pension benefits in many cases are irrevocable, which means you cannot change the election once it's made. So if you die 12 months later, or 18 months later, or 2 years later, or 5 years later, it is what it is. Do you really want to put your loved one in that situation? Do you really want to put your beneficiaries in a situation that they receive nothing because you didn't plan correctly, right? You also have to look at how pension plays in the Social Security, because remember, with Social Security benefits and pension, if both of you are getting Social Security and pension, and let's say the Social Security is the same for both of you, you lose that Social Security income and you lose the pension. So when you add that number up, it can be pretty significant. And just because one spouse dies, it doesn't necessarily decrease the life expectancy for the other individual. Also, you've got to look at your 401k. How does it play into your pension? What's going to happen if you have taxable pension of $6,000 a month, but you have a 401k? How are you going to take money out? Because you know very well that up to 35-40% of your income can go directly to Uncle Sam or your state government if you're in a taxable state. So when you put all this together, you've got to look at it and you've got to figure out how is the best way to proceed. What do you do so it serves you? It's not a guessing game. This is the rest of your life. And if you're wrong, it can impact you and your family forever. My name is Ally McFarland, and I am a financial advisor and fiduciary, and I help people every day, just like yourself, work on these specific situations with pensions and Social Security. If you have a question, please click on the link below to schedule an appointment or call the number on your screen. I look forward to hearing from you.